Hi, guys. When you read a chapter book, it's really important to remember what happened in the chapter before. So we'll go back over the chapter before we read this story. So remember, when they were sweeping, what was happening? They were making the other hole dirty, right? So they decided to work together and have half the work. And then they had so much time left that they got to plant a garden. All right, that brings us to the invitations. Mouse found an invitation in her mailbox. It was from her neighbor, Mole. Dear Mouse, if you are not too busy, please come join me for lunch to celebrate our new garden. Your neighbor downstairs, Mole. Around noon, there came a tap, tap, tap on Mole's door. Glad you could make it, said Mole. Please come in. Mouse had picked dandelions for the occasion. For you, she said, until our flowers come up. Mouse looked around the room. But you keep a nice, tidy hole, she squeaked. Thank you, said Mouse. It was a bit damp inside Mole's hole. Mouse shivered. Mole also kept his place rather dark, as bright light hurts his eyes. Mouse bumped into the table as she sat down. Bump! Mole poured a cup of tea for Mouse and one for himself. I wasn't sure how you liked your worms, said Mole, so I prepared them 2 ways. Then, the ones on the right are lightly fried. The ones on the left have not been cooked. Dig in. Mouse took one of each to be polite. Mole filled his plate. He was starved. Mole crunched, Mole slurped. Mouse poked the worms on her plate. The one on the left wiggled and squirmed. Mouse's stomach began to wiggle and squirm. The one on the right looked greenish and gray. Mouse's face turned greenish and gray. The damp air made her sneeze. Achoo! Goodness, Mouse, said Mole. You don't look too well. I don't feel so good, Mouse moaned. Please excuse me, Mole, but I think I better go upstairs and lie down. She bumped into the door on her way out. That evening, Mole found an invitation in his mailbox. Dear Mole, I'm feeling much better. Please join me for dinner at 6 o'clock to continue our garden celebration. Your neighbor, upstairs, Mouse. At 6 o'clock, there came a tap, tap, tap at Mouse's door. Right on time, said Mouse. Please come in. You're looking much better, said Mole. Thank you, said Mouse. This evening, the sun poured through the windows in Mouse's house. Mole covered his eyes, and he walked smack into a wall. Mole bumped into the table and sat down. Bump! Mouse poured a cup of tea for Mole and one for herself. I was not sure which cheese you preferred, said Mouse, so I cut up 2 kinds. The one on the left is cheddar and the one on the right is Limburger. Help yourself. To be polite, Mole took a thin slice of each. Mouse loaded her plate. She was famished. Mouse nibbled and Mouse gnawed. Mole's head was still aching from walking into the wall. He began to wobble in his seat. The bright lights overhead hurt his eyes. The strong odor of the Limburger made his stomach go flip-flop, plop. Mole toppled right out of his chair. Mercy, Mole, squeaked Mouse. Are you okay? Mole groaned. I feel a little bit dizzy. Please excuse me, Mouse, but I think I'd better go downstairs and rest. He bumped into the door on the way out. So, we are now at the next chapter. So what happened in that chapter? What was the big problem? Mouse could not be in Mole's cave because it was too dark, and Mole can't be in her house because it's too bright. Do they eat the same things? No. So really the big problem is that they're very, very different. Tomorrow we'll read the next chapter.